Good evening, gentlemen. It's a wonderful weather. Very cool breeze is blowing outside. But I wanted to go to the club. I didn't go. I wanted to make a small video, and here I'm making one for you all. What's this about now? Well, gentlemen, it's going to be about Pakistan. Well, India is already regretting treating Pakistan with kid gloves because there have been two terrorist incidents in Rajouri, and recently five more Indian Jawans have been martyred by terrorists. And we say, and I believe it is true, that these are the terrorists who have come across the border. Now, I'll tell you something about the Kashmiri character. I've served in Kashmir for a long time. The Kashmiris, by and large, are very peaceful. They believe in Sufism and they do not believe in violence. That is one thing I've seen. They are basically a very docile race, but they're instigated and instigated by men from across the border who come here. And these terrorists who have martyred five Indian soldiers in Rajouri, including the earlier terrorist attack in the same place when five other Indian soldiers were blown up, are by terrorists who came from Pakistan. Now the question arises, why are we tolerating all this? Do the Israelis tolerate the terrorist attack activities of Hamas or anybody else? They give a reply which is very, very lethal. They use aircraft, they use bombers, and they finish up the opponents. And Hamas can't do a damn thing. And that includes Iran, which is their big backer. But in India, we have a different solution here. We did do the Balakot airstrike, and then we had those two surgical strikes, but the net result of that is a zero. If they were successful, we wouldn't have had these terrorist attacks coming here and there, and Bhutto Zardari coming and saying that he would teach India a lesson, what lesson he's going to teach. Because Pakistan, as it is in very dire straits, and they don't know what to do. They don't have food to eat. Their balance of payments is zero, and they're dependent on China. Now, the crucial factor here, gentlemen, we must realize is that Pakistan is dependent on China, and China is India's enemy. The Chinese consider India an enemy. Why they do it, I do not know, but the roots are in history. And also we must remember the words of the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who had said that a strong China is always an expansionist China. And that is the point to be noted. India is trying to play a double game, hoping we'll be friends with Russia and Russia will temper the Chinese. I'm afraid it's not going to happen that way because Russia is totally dependent on China. And Russia is feeling a little hurt with India being a member of the Quad, and at the same time trying to be friends with Russia, because Russia feels Quad is a destabilizing force in the world, in particular Southeast Asia. Now, gentlemen, what is the solution? Pakistan continues its terrorist activities in Kashmir. India keeps on sending troops to gun them down, hunt them down, and in the bargain we are losing troops every day, soldiers, and each life is precious, and to lose them in such silly battles is preposterous. It's something which I can't accept as a soldier. It's okay if you die in a war, in a battle for the country, but when you die a meaningless death at the hands of terrorists, what is the solution? The problem actually arises again. I think if you go through the old stage, what Mao Zedong had said, he said that political power comes out of the barrel of a gun. And what did Field Marshal Clausewitz, the man who enunciated the principles of war, he said, the military and war is an extension of the political aim. That means you can't be a world power without military power, and at the same time you cannot dominate the world by talking of ahimsa and non-violence and all that thing which Gandhi used to talk. They got irrelevant, absolutely, if you ask me now. And yet we keep on playing Gandhi is a great man. Fair enough, he's a very great man, he's a mass leader, but his policies do not suit the present India. Then we have Jawaharlal Nehru, a man who could have changed the face of India, made India into a world power, and at every stage this man faltered because he had a false sense of priority, a false sense totally of what is important or not important. He did not believe in global domination. I mean, what he believed in, I don't know. He thought he would be a great third world leader. You don't become a third world leader with legs of clay. And that's what happened. He got us bashing in the 62 war with China. And then he has done such a lot of damage to India from that time, when he was in power for 17 years, handed over the entire Tibet to China, Aksai Chin to China, didn't have a border settlement. He's the man who went and made the promise for the plebiscite in Kashmir. And I was listening to a interview with this Rajdeep Sardesai of Bilawal Bhutto, and he made a very point. He said, who's the man who went to the United Nations and asked for a ceasefire? Who's the man who promised a plebiscite in Kashmir? And of course, Rajdeep was a little nonplussed because everybody knows it was Pandit Nehru. Now, once you have made those promises and then you don't go back, obviously it's like lighting a matchstick to a haystack, and a bonfire will result. At the same time, over the years, right from the time of Nehru, let's forget Nehru, he died in 1964, but the men who followed him, Lal Bahadur Shastri and others, they didn't have the acumen, the vision to make India a power, and they were just passing time, sitting on their haunches. That's a sad commentary. And I would say even Narasimha Rao, he did try to change, but didn't do anything. And then we had a very forgettable period in Indian history when Sardar Mohan Singh became the Prime Minister. I'm afraid that would, in my book, is the dark age for India. The dark age, I say, because that is the time when India slipped totally in world standing. And he committed so many mistakes. Even he made a statement in which he signed that India will not do anything in Baluchistan. What the hell was this Prime Minister talking? India's got nothing to do in Baluchistan. And yet in the statement he equated Baluchistan with Kashmir when he had a meeting with Musharraf. Now what can you say about such a man? And now to see him just sitting quietly with his turban, I feel really sad that India had such a leader. Narendra Modi has come in, but then he's handicapped. There's an old saying, cleaning the Augeon stables. Augeon stables were the stables of the gods, which were so filthy that they couldn't be cleaned ever. And Modi has come in, but he cannot clean the Augeon stables, which have become so dirty, so filthy from the time of Nehru. They're going to take a long, long time to do it. And the crux of the issue which I'm making is that India does not have the military power to overcome Pakistan. Because like the Israelis do against Hamas and the other Arab states, India does not have the preponderance of military superiority over Pakistan to finish Pakistan once for all and finish terrorism. So what is the solution? That means we continue with terrorism. We continue making some statements here and there, and I do not know the solution. Frankly, I am at my wit's end, because we've gone into what is known as a quagmire in which you keep sinking and sinking and sinking. And all the fond hopes of which Narendra Modi had of trying to be friendly with China has become zero. I might surprise you that he's met the Chinese president 20 times and he couldn't assess what the Chinese were going to do, and they did the Galwan incident and other things. The only saving grace on the border is that China in the recent SCO meeting has said that the border is stable. Yes, it is stable, but Chinese have not gone back to the line, and after 2020, they've taken 1,000 square kilometers of Indian territory. How did this happen? Why should it happen? And the simple thing is twofold: a lack of a proactive foreign policy, number one, and then we have that famous book by Alistair MacLean, Fear is the Key, which dominates the Indian policy, a fear of China. We treating China with kid gloves. We don't say anything about Tibet, we don't say anything about Xinjiang, we don't say anything about Hong Kong, we don't support Formosa or Taiwan. What the hell is going on? And the Chinese don't issue passports to Indians who are from Arunachal Pradesh. They give them stapled visas. They claim the entire Arunachal Pradesh. They have a 59 claim line. They claim that in Ladakh. And they have named 13 places in Arunachal Pradesh with Chinese names, and we just sit and say we don't recognize it. That's not enough. You've got to be proactive. The problem is, again, which I've been pointing out for in all my videos, it's a lack of a proactive foreign policy. That's number one. And number two, the lack of military power and who's responsible for it. India is looking at a defensive force, a defense against Pakistan or against China. And that is very sad. Because I must remember when I was doing the staff college, we didn't have any course or any study wherein there was a talk as how India could go in deep into Tibet and maybe capture Lhasa, and how if there was a war with Pakistan, India could ever capture Lahore or Sialkot. I'll give you an example. When Dr. Radhakrishnan, who was the Vice President of India in 1966, visited Gamal Abdul Nasser in Egypt, he told him India has won the war against Pakistan and all that thing. We took so many square miles of territory, which is more than Pakistan and all that. And Nasser had only one word. If you had won the war, he said, you should have gone and captured Lahore. The fact is, India was nowhere close to capturing Lahore in 65 or whether in 71. And that is the point. Indian Army has not moved beyond 8 to 10 miles in the Pakistan-controlled areas, and Lahore is just 15 miles from the border. Gentlemen, this is just food for thought. Because an army is as efficient or as lethal as it is made by the political leadership. And if the political leadership has cold feet, what can you do about it? The Khalistan movement, for example, going on, I keep talking on so many points. It's supported again by Pakistan. Why can't we be more proactive on it? Go about and see the few Khalistan leaders who are floating around the world are really dealt with in the way they should be. They are terrorists and need to be dealt with. Well, gentlemen, these are just foods for thought. The Indian armed forces are a wonderful fighting machine which was created by the British. They dominated the world. Who can forget the battles in Beijing during the famous Boxer Rebellion? They beat the hell out of the Chinese. The first and the second opium wars, in which they thrashed the Chinese. And in the battles in Haifa in Lebanon, where they smashed the Turks. You name it, the Indian army was everywhere, and the same army has been reduced to seed because the government is thinking of controlling the budget. Now, everything is not done by budget. You say, budget, we want to control the budget. What the hell? I say, budget? When you want to make a prestige in the world, look at North Korea. Even the Americans are wary of North Korea. Nobody is wary of India. And China is proactive. 18 trillion economy. Why couldn't India have that when India was much ahead of Pakistan, of China in 1947? We had a steel plant, an aircraft factory, car factory, and whatnot. And China, not even a bicycle was made until 49 Chinese were involved in a civil war between the communists and the Kuomintang. Gentlemen, there is only hope, and hope lies in a new leader who may replace Narendra Modi. And I have a feeling India should look forward to the day when Yogi Adityanath seizes the reins of power in India. I hope it happens, because Modi has, like rumor Gordon, done some lot of good things, but the old saying, thus far and no further. He hasn't gone anything beyond certain points. He hasn't enforced the civil code, which should have done it, the uniform civil code. He's been in power for 9 years. He should have opened up Kashmir totally to the entire India. He hasn't done it. He done a lot of good things, but then the negative things, he made the Agnipath scheme, and he hasn't put meat into the armed forces' brain how to go about fighting China. There were two strike corps which were sanctioned during the time of Manmohan Singh. I think haven't heard about them, probably they're shelved. Those strike corps were specially meant for China. There is no escaping the fact that if you want peace, you've got to be prepared for war. And war means you have to win it. Not like fighting a war with Ukraine, where neither Russians are winning nor the Ukrainians are winning. You can have a stalemate, a long, prolonged war. It will lead nowhere. Gentlemen, this is what I am saying. India has to teach Pakistan a lesson, but that can only be done with the parameters which I have stated. And if those parameters are not followed, I do not know what India is going to do. I close now, gentlemen, and say goodbye. Jai Hind, glory to India. I hope you will subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and come back for more. Bye, and God bless and good luck.